And we're back with the rise of the green tide. We're here to recap the Christmas War, or the wall before Christmas APOC game. So, what I mean by that is, this is going to be a review of my personal and David's personal experience of what happens when two people who have never done an apocalypse game decide, hey, we're going to show up to apocalypse game that has been modified for 10th edition, because the last time the apocalypse games rules were officially came out were for 8th edition. So there's a whole setup for that, but this was pretty much 10th edition rules modified from the 8th edition. And the person doing it going forward had his own little couple strats set up and how he wanted this to be. So we have a bunch of pictures. We're going to go over essentially what it was about, what our experience was, would we be involved in it again, some highs, some lows, how it could be improved, some things you should look out for, maybe ask your TO before you attend your own apocalypse game kind of event. And yeah, so going forward, let's look at some picks. So right off the bat,
yeah, this is the start of the show here.
What the heck is this? Some people are saying, right? This is a mega gargant. Pretty much this is, you can see this on Winter's SEO. So Winter's SEO has his own version of this where he actually made their rules for this last edition and 9th edition. Okay. So what the guy did is he took the 9th edition rules from Winter's SEO and he modified them for 10th edition. So he changed like DACA and certain rules like that don't exist anymore in keywords. And then, yeah, so we had this gigantic Lord of War, whatever we call this guy, beyond Lord of War. He was on one side of the table, and then we had his equivalent on the other side of the table, which we do have a picture for him. So this was actually deployment. You can see how massive this thing is. He is the real size of a child. And this guy put them together by hand. So the guy who put them together put them by hand, and he brought a bunch of other cool stuff too. So we have a bunch of pictures. This was it side by side to a Stampa. So the Stampa looked like it could be placed on top of it, like it was a little model. That's how big it was. The Stampa was irrelevant to him. That's me to the right of it, with my arms crossed. You know, I'm about 6 foot, a little over 6 foot. And yeah, and that's how big it was in my perspective of how it was for me. So I ended up being the Grand Warlord of the whole team. It was about 8 versus 8 or 10 versus 10, something about like that. So, yeah. And they voted me to be the Grand Warlord. I didn't know that going into this. So that being said, my Warlord from my list had to be the Grand Warlord for the whole thing, which was a lone mech. That's who was my Warlord. And I went to this not knowing about this stupid giant Gargant model. Right. So guess what my Warlord did all game? He gave that Mega Gargant +1 to hit while he was looking down the table at his adversary. And yes, that's me again looking at his adversary with his thumb up. Right, that's me looking all happy because that is what is that? Warlord, Super Titan, whatever it is. We have pictures of it closer. Yeah. So this is what it was. So those are the hot dog Titans. I think those are each 2,000 points regularly. Those are 2,000 points themselves regularly. There's some Lehman Russes down there, and then that's him. So that's what he was faced up against the whole game. Spoiler alert, each of those guns right there, one shot a kill tank, one of my kill tanks each turn. Yeah. Like he was like one gun here, and then he was like one gun there, and then just marked the kill tanks. So he was having fun. We had some super gigantic Lords of War that were faced off against each other. They ended up not really shooting at each other too much, just in case anybody's wondering. They ended up kind of targeting problematic enemy units they wanted to kill, which did end up mattering a lot later in the game for us.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, it was ended up being a big deal when these guys were ended up going off. Here's another picture I took before the game. I lined up my Stampa, my Morkanaut, my Gorkanaut. You know, they wanted to charge, they wanted to get stuck in. They were looking at them, and then they realized they were a little outclassed. So that's kind of what was happening here. That was their point of view. This was what happened once they actually started to deploy on the table. So now we're going to go into the actual how everything happened. How was deployment and the rules, David? If you want to go over how we had to do deployment real quick.
So yeah, we had a total of 5 tables, right? 5 tables.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was essentially split down where we were, I think, 20 inches apart down the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then that 5th table, as you can see, is perpendicular to the rest. And the blue tape there signifies that there was another no man's land section. So imagine our own deployment.
So imagine the whole table looked like a big letter E.
Yeah.
And that's how you can imagine it. There was the big long ways, and then there was 3 little smaller sections you'll see in these pictures where it was offset, and they were all pretty much no man's land. This is the enemy's deployment zone. It was pretty much mostly everybody against orcs, but we had about I want to say like less than 10K of other stuff in our faction and our list too on our team.
Yeah, and that was determined by the TO for balance sake.
Yeah, for balance sake, which it didn't matter. It didn't matter because orcs don't shoot at all, so they gave us some stuff they could shoot on our team. But this is the enemy. They had a bunch of knights, they had a bunch of necrons, they had a bunch of Leman Russes, Imperial Guard. They had leagues of Voltan, they had Space Marines, they had a bunch of stuff. So they were loaded up with guns why to go. Here's why I said it looks like an E. This is the middle of the table. That's what those big blue lines are. As you can see, this is already pretty massive. Those are both teams lining up. Everybody was setting up. The enemy team did go first. We rolled, we didn't roll off for it. What it did was we had everybody had to guess how long it would take for their team to deploy, and then when the team was gone, whoever was closest to their time would get to go first. They beat us by like 3 seconds, pretty much. Like we declared it, and then they declared it, and then
we ended up guessing 35 minutes, and they guessed 30 minutes. And because they beat us by a few seconds, they were technically closer to their time, so they ended up getting first turn. And I actually like that system because it's a lot of models, as you can see, 116,000
so
points.
It forced everybody to just throw stuff down, and everything else was in reserves. It didn't matter. It was freaking crazy. There's a bunch of different strats too to help people get in on the table, like drop in within 3, teleport across the table if you have the deep strike keyword, and then everybody turn 3 at the deep strike keyword, so you can move guys around the table freely and periodically. But of course, turn was a lot of shooting, so we did call the whoa turn 1. I had all of the orc team line up on one side of the shop, and then we stared at the enemy. We got up in a big line, stared them down, and we yelled whoa, and then we charged. So that's what we did pretty much in real life too.
Yeah, I wish I would have recorded that, but the wall energy was just so high, I got caught in the moment.
It was pretty humorous, to be honest. The enemy was like, what the heck? All the other guys were just staring at each other.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the building shook a bit.
Yeah. So this is the enemy line. You can see we had 2 gargantuan squiggles right on the line. We had a couple Imperial Knights, and then we had 5 Stampas lined up right on the line. This is a little bit more of our mid-table backline. A bunch of a Speedwall was chilling there. We had our 1 Tyranid player hold down that middle objective with his Norns. He brought multiple Norns. Then we had a bunch of Custo Gladius grav tanks that were shooting for us, and they're playing. This was one of the orc players. He had a nice big detachment of battle wagons and trucks, and they were all looted. They looked great. They had a nice little assortment of that. Here's one of the gargantuan squiggles that was right up on the line, lined up against knights and what's it called, the Great Unclean One and stuff like that. Here's the second one. Yeah. So we were getting that stuck in. Here was the speed wall when it started to move. It was pretty dope. There's the Tyranid player, of course. He had that big, whatever that thing's called.
I don't remember.
I don't know what it's called, but the big Lord of War, the big enemy super knight, I forgot what that was called. He one-shot that thing too. Like he was just like, I'm not having none of that. So enemy players did go first. The enemy did go first. If you can see in this picture and another picture as we go forward, the Stampas were all lined up right there, right on the line. The rules according to this game were everybody. I should have gone over this sooner.
Yeah.
Everybody, all the vehicles and all the monsters, once they get shot, they're not immediately picked up and gone. They get to have their whole player turn, and then at the end of the player turn, they roll for explosions on a 4-up, and then they get to removed, right?
Well, it's actually applied to T8 vehicles only.
Okay.
And it was at the end of the battle round where you roll the explosions and then get to move.
Yeah.
Which you'll see later in the pictures.
It was a player turn.
Impact.
It was the round. And the reason why it was each player turn. No,
it was the round.
You sure?
Because we all did our explosion rolls at the same time.
Oh my gosh, you're right. And why that was so important, guys, and I remember why that was so important.
Chain reaction.
What it did is not only because it chain reaction on the 4+. So imagine all these look at all these trucks, right? Those are all Leman Russes. Those are all knights you've seen on all these pictures we went over. Imagine these are all blowing up on 4+. So it's a chain reaction here on this picture of everything that gets blown up. Once the round is over, everybody rolls on a 4-up, they blow up, and then they start blowing up each other down the line. So it was epic. Why that's also good is because then it clears up table for the reserves and the deep strikes to start coming all over the table. So at first you think it's a feel bad thing going into the event. But once you actually played it, it was actually pretty awesome because it got rid of stuff that was hurt, made huge holes in the middle of the table. So it was like craters everywhere. And then people got to drop in all over that with their reserves and start getting stuck in combat because all these big gunline stuff pretty much blew each other up by being stuck in with each other. So it actually wasn't super annoying.
Yeah, there was some nights that got one shot off explosion.
Yeah, there was nights that were getting because they were surrounded by Leman Russes or they were surrounded by Bane Blades. Like right here, all the Stampas lined up, 4 Stampas in a row. So imagine all those Stampas moved forward, had 20 boys embarked in them. The Stampas have their turn, go shoot, blah, 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 charge if they can. Then they roll to blow up. They blow up everything around him, and then all the boys disembark, which we do have pictures of that. This is the end of the enemy turn 1. So they shot up, they move forward, they try to take the objective, lined up on our Stampas, and then Snickrat, somebody had a Snickrat on the table. He survived. That Snickrat ended up getting picked up and moving into the enemy backline with some shock jump dragsters that David had. So he made a move for the backline. So Snickrat all the way, baby, survived. The Imperial Guard was super surprised at that. Yeah, he was just chilling there. It was quite hilarious. And then this was the following turn. Like I said, everything moved forward, got right in there. This is before they blew up, right? Because they're all blowing up on a 4+. So then this is going to reactly chain out and start killing everything. And then there's like killed Dreads there. There was a Land Raider with aggressors from one of the people that was there right here. Actually, here's the picture. Some buggies. And like I said, guys, remember when the chain reaction goes off, this all looks like this is here. And then most of this just starts getting picked up because it starts blowing each other up and dying. And then a whole different wave of stuff came in on the battlefield. So here, you see those trucks, that huge detachment of trucks, Lehman Russes and Baneblades that is right there on the north side of this picture. It was funny because my Zag truck dropped down turn 2 between these two Stampas, essentially behind that building, ran forward and killed the enemy characters that were behind, like stuck between some tanks, took out some officers. It was quite hilarious. This is what happened once the Stampas blew up and disembarked everybody. So you can see a bunch of those vehicles are kind of missing and trucks are missing there. And then these are all the Stampas that all the infantry boys that disembarked. So you can just see how these blobs of 20 boys all dropping all over the objectives. Yeah. Because that objective is actually 3 inches further than it looks on that neoprene mat. So all 3 of those units have guys on that objective. So that was actually pretty awesome. And then, yeah, they ended up changing the rule to 3 inches away when we started going through the turn and stuff like that, so that more people could get on the table. It was cool. This was the backline objective, where like near your deployment zone, if the enemies could take this one, they could get 5 points. So I did make the call as the war boss, because we were having fun. We didn't screen that out at all. Like, not very much. We made like a horseshoe. Yeah, you fit a monolith there. We let them come in, dude. We were like, whatever, dude. As a team, we just kind of agreed, like, just let them come in. We moved up a little bit. We had Grots on that objective and some commandos. They dropped in with a bunch of Necron bricks, the monolith of some Valkyries. As you can see in this battle wagon in the picture, this is actually David's. He had flash kits in there and the 10-man unit, a knob scalpel unit. So we were like, stop in right next to us.
Yeah, I think they felt overconfident. Seeing all those Grots on the objective.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, we'll shoot these guys off and take the objective.
Yeah, and then we had Maz, and then behind Maz, you see there's unit of Beast Squig Hog Boys. That was Wicked Joe Squig Hog Boys, because Wicked Joe was at the event.
Yeah, Wicked Joe.
And then on the north side of this picture, there was a Dark Angels player with the Lion. So we let him go handle his Blood Angel brother in that corner because he was all by himself. So I didn't want him to get no action. So we let guys drop in right next to him. I was like, you were looking bored? All right, dude, you better hold it down. I kept pointing at him. I was like, you wanted this. So then this is what the follow-up when David cleaned everything up. So my kill rig moved forward. David with the flash kits and the knobs moved forward, annihilated all those new Necron characters that were there. Mazrog went and got stuck in and touched some stuff. The Dark Angel player cleared up the stuff on the north side. So pretty much we pushed them off our home objective. We gave them a fair chance, but they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, so that 20 blob of warriors that was back there, they had the
empty space right there.
That gives them -1 a hit. So I shot him with the flash kits, but I'm obviously hitting on 6s. Popped the lethal, did like 19 wounds, took care of like half the unit. So I had to charge the flash kits in and kill them just to the very last man with just
very durable and annoying. But flash kits having a bunch of punches on 5s was pretty great.
They're awesome.
And then this was the turn when everybody started bringing in their reserves, reinforcements. We bought a bunch of planes. This guy was just trying to fill stuff on the table. He threw a bunch of flyers on the plane. There are still some Stampas alive. My Stampa survived till like turn 3 maybe. My Stampa, because he was kind of backline behind David's Mech Workshop. So when everybody moved forward, they all got blown up, and my Stampa just slowly moved up into place. And then the Mega Knobs jumped out, killed some what were they? I think they were chosen actually at the end when I was rolling it out. Yeah,
really?
And then over here, this Stompa up here was fighting all those demons and stuff. He blew up, created a whole crater there of empty guys, and then Katans all dropped there and everything, and then knobs. And underneath there's planes. It's hard to see, but there's actually mega knobs stuck under there, and some knobs that come into later from the side of the table. So there was one player here. Shout out, I don't know your name. Wearing blue shorts. I pretty much talked to him, and I was like, dude, you're gonna hold down this little corner. He had a huge collection of stuff. He had played Apocalypse games before. He gets his stuff on trays. He was so quick to deploying. I was like, dude, you're just going to keep feeding stuff into this corner. Hold this down because we need this objective. Keep putting stuff there, and he did.
Yeah,
As
he
you
did a
can
great job.
Yeah, he did a great job. You see, we have some unpainted squigs down there at the bottom too, and some more stuff that came in from the table edge. He also dropped in a bunch of Def Coptas. The enemy got distracted by that. It was pretty great.
And we somehow we still didn't even have 18 Def Copters in this game.
I know, I'm a little disappointed. Yeah, we did. All right, so let me look at some of the chats real quick from some of you gets. Whoa, for the revolution. There's a lot of grot play here. 57K. Yeah, it was pretty crazy, dude. Let me get some more bosses and some boys in chats for the emotes, guys. Let me get them emotes in chat. I see a bunch of members here. Let's go. Whoa. All right. Deep Track, where did this happen? This happened in Schaumburg, Illinois.
Roselle.
Oh, Roselle. Oops.
Yeah, Roselle, Grognard Games. It's right next to Schaumburg, so like right on the border.
Yeah. It was pretty. It was like we were just having, it was the wall before Christmas and all through the nights. The boys were won, crumping just right.
I believe this was the first year, right?
Yeah, it was his first year.
This is the first
and
year.
He said that next year he wants to get, because we had such a good outcome, he's going to be able to get the whole other half of the shop.
Yes.
So we have the whole shop, so we'll fill up with all the tables and such. How did the Mag Workboy work out in that game? You would think it would work out, but because everything was blowing up, it didn't. And then I thought I was slick, and I was like, when that Super Titan looked at me with the big gun I was telling you about early in the game, when he looked at me, I was like, oh yeah, my kill tank's behind a Mech Workshop. He's like, -5 AP. I'm like, all right, just tell me the damage. Yeah. So sadly it didn't work out this game. It just didn't, but it's okay.
Yeah, there's too much shooting on the board.
I would say what was actually pretty better than I expected would be a bunch of commandos. If you brought commandos and Snick Rot, picked up a bunch of those units and threw them in the enemy's backline, like if we did that for like 30 commandos with 3 different Snick Rots or something, and then we just jump back there, that would have messed them up. And then did it with Weird Boy bricks or something. That would have been crazy. If if that turn 1 we just went like, all right, deep strike, teleport, bricks 20 boys and mandos, boom, you can't do anything to us. And then we would that would have been slick, but we weren't, that
or
key.
even that middle objective, move blocking them from getting even on it.
Yeah, you could have done that
sure.
Yep.
They had all those vehicles. They would have been crammed in their deployment zone for one.
We would have needed a bunch more of them, but we would have needed a bunch because there's a big line.
For sure.
But either way, Mandos would have been so useful. Even a Zod drop, more Zods would have been useful. We didn't even use them. That would have been hilarious in that big game. These bikers pretty much got stuck up behind the squigs, and then they got shot away. But it was cool. They looked awesome.
Yeah, it was. They were a little too far away to participate in the action.
Yeah, and that's all good. And then, like I said, this was when the boys disembarked. There's totally in the objectives getting stuck there. They think there was some aggressors and everything. There was over the big moments was really when we pushed everybody off the back objectives. We maintained all the primary because we kept going back and forth here on this. And one of the we were pretty much just doing like a who could kill the most warlords from the enemy list. That was the other secondary mission. So we were trying to kill the most warlords from the enemy list. So we started hunting down the enemy warlords at this point in the game. And that was difficult because they were shooting factions. So it was hard. And we lost a couple of our warlords going in because we were fighting. We were orcs. Yeah. So some of our warlords are right on the front line. So the enemy not only went first, but then they were fighting, killing our warlords, hunting them down across this whole frontline perimeter because they knew that what they needed to do to score. So we were on the back foot from there. We had to call turn 1 wall defensively instead of offensively.
Yeah, and there was a miscommunication in the rules because there was a special strat for a 12-inch. Was it 12-inch, right? Smoke screen? 12-inch smoke screen that wasn't communicated or understood by us until after our turn. So that's why we decided to call the turn 1 wall. It would have been helpful to have.
The smoke screen would have just pulled up so they couldn't shoot like a 12-inch. How big the table was, it wasn't huge, but it would have helped for certain like knights and stuff. Maybe a Stompa would survive. Either way, what we did instead with smoke screen, which was smart, I didn't get a picture of it because remember, I was the war boss of the whole team, so I was a little all over the place. But when we did realize we had smoke screen, what we did is we dropped a bunch of custodes into behind the smoke screen. There was a big gap because remember, everything was blowing up. So there's a big crater in the table, and they had a bunch of guardsmen and tanks, as you can see here too, right? So where you see those guard tanks up in the north side of this picture, we dropped in that empty pocket, what looks like an empty pocket, we dropped a big brick of custodes and the storm boys and stuff behind the smoke screen and centurions. That way they couldn't shoot our guys that were staged right there in the middle, and it cut off that section of the table that you see that big Warhound Titan and all that stuff is. So it cut a line from there. So even though we didn't know about it, I used it to our advantage turn 2, and it stopped them from cutting across the table and killing that. That means we were able to clear up all those Lehman Russes. Every single Lehman Russ on that list and that little pocket got eliminated by us by destroying it or it blowing up from a chain reaction, whatever it was. We actually destroyed a ton of them. It was pretty dope.
Yeah, you adapted well to
We
the
actually
situation.
we were actually using quite decent generalship on our team. Shout out to my team, anybody that was on it. People kept coming over to me and asking me like, "War boss, what should we do? What do you want to do here? What should we do here? Blah 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 blah." And that all mattered because we were working like a cohesive force, and they were acting more like a bunch of you know like very powerful armies that were working
Yeah.
individually.
They
you
were
know?
just happy to shoot their.
They were just happy to get so much orc, blood and be able to kill a bunch of us. But everything made sense. Like when they asked us, like when they told us we were deploying, all the Stompas went ahead for just to blow up and cause chain reactions, just so that we can disembark. We had our secondary stuff, know exactly who was coming in on which flanks. I barely even played any of my own models because we cut the table into sections. That way, more people could actually roll dice, but so they weren't running around the table. It was like every guy in this area, you roll for all my kill tanks and my Stompa and your stuff. No waste of time, just roll it. And then that allowed us to roll our guns and get through our fights. Because you imagine, guys, orcs have a lot of dice. Yeah. So for us to get through it, we only had 1 hour per battle round.
Yep.
Or
per turn.
Per turn. I mean, we're dumb. So each team was just going. So I was walking around the table. I would just yell some stuff like, "Hey guys, we're ready to move on to the shooting phase. We're moving to move on to the charge phase." The other team wasn't really doing that. Exactly. They were just kind of going through the motions and as really strong armies. On this section here, the Stompa was clutch because the Stompa moved forward and then blew up and caused a bunch of that stuff to blow up. And then you can see those triple Katans that are hiding there. They survived, but then the knobs that were in there and the mega knobs got out and started killing all that stuff that came down on the flank too. So this was a pretty strong flank with that guy shot out in the red. And then you can see we had our own stuff holding it. At one point, Calgar and some aggressors held it for a little bit. It was pretty dope. It was an orc load of Death Copters. Yeah, it was a ton of Death Copters, which was pretty dope. And we put them out terrain so they can get plunging fire. I personally blame the Eldar. there wasn't even really that much Eldar there, but yeah. How many points did each player bring? That was the thing, right? So let's talk about rules that we should have preemptively talked about. So the TO, the tournament organizer, the player event organizer, EO, whatever you want to call it, he had told everybody do whatever you want, which kind of was a mistake. That's how we got to 116,000 thousand points. What it was I think I personally brought like, what was it, a little under 4?
Yeah.
And then David brought a little over 5. Sorry, a little over 2.5, excuse me. Like, sorry, yeah. He brought a little 0.25. Everybody brought, we'll say most people brought somewhere around 3.5 if we had to do an average, if we just averaged everybody out, because some people brought significantly more, some people brought right at 2K. The event organizer said that next time he would make it like 2,000, and then you can add Titanics on top of that to kind of fill it out. That would be a good thing to do as well.
Yeah, I think the issue that happened was people brought multiple armies of 2K.
Yes.
So then, like, when reinforcements came in, it's like they lost all their units from one army, and it's like a whole new another army. You'll see here later in the pictures.
Yeah, you can see that. Actually, these tanks are just reloads of a whole nother tank regiment.
Right.
That's actually, these guys were already dead from the first Stompas that went forward and fought. And there were some of them. There was a bunch of stuff that happened here, guys. That's how Angron ended up. Yeah,
that's how Angron ended up.
See, like how that's why these blues are all the demon guys that came in. They ended up coming in later and stuff. It was pretty dope. And then right here, this is actually Wicked Joe's Mazrog holding Angron in place. Now, why this actually mattered a lot was because late game, spoiler, how we ended up winning this, was we had to hunt down the enemy warlord that last turn, going second. And the super Gargant that we showed earlier ended up getting +1 to hit from my mech, ended up sniping out, what was that, one of those Castellan Knights, or which version was the knight was it?
I'm not sure what night it was, but it was a bigger night.
It was one of those super heavy knights. And then we also had to snipe out the Silent King, and we had to kill Angron.
Yeah, so
we took 3 warlords down at the end of the game, and that put us ahead by 1 point, and we ended up winning. Which is wild because we were at every disadvantage for the game. So actually Wicked Joe on this detachment came over here on his side. He was right at the front lines with his, Wicked Joe's pretty much a newer player to the game. So we were like, hey dude, I was like, you're getting stuck in the trenches, bro. I don't care, man. We're working together. I was like, put your whole stuff right here, Joe. He's like, yeah, I got you, dude. Dropped all his squigs. He was like, all right, man, what's going on? And he was just looking around. Everybody was like, kill the squigs. And everybody started shooting Joe. And then Maz was there. Maz ran in and freaking bounced off Angron, but then Angron hit him back and he survived. Then that kept him in place so he couldn't hide because there's an L-shaped ruin behind him because he was right there. That's the L-shaped ruin that he was there was. He could have easily fallen back and, whatever. And then tried to and run away. And if he was free, just charged away, gone behind a building, whatever he wanted to do. But he had to stay exactly where he was. So we lined up shots into him and we killed him because he didn't realize we were going to hunt him down since we got them at the turn. So it was pretty dope. Overall, it was a super crazy event. Like I said, and then this is a picture of me and Wicked Joe together at the end, just taking a picture. This was actually a different day, but either way, it was pretty dope that we got to meet each other because they're going to do this pretty annually and everything. So yeah, and with that being said, what would you say, David, that you learned? I'm gonna go back to the front because I like that gargant picture, guys. What would you say about this? Would you participate in it again? What do you think going forward? Would you recommend something like this to people? I mean, we had never played Apocalypse, and we typically just played, competitive.
Right.
So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it was a very good experience for people of all different experiences. Like you mentioned, Wicked Joe's a newer player, and at least our team, we're all helping each other and looking up rules because there's so many data sheets to juggle around and rolling dice for each other and just kind of learning. Even though the tactics in Apocalypse are different, there are transferable tactics and situations you're put in that you can apply to a normal game of 40K. And I guess the other thing I would say is it was a little unfortunate that I brought a speed wall to like 5 o'clock traffic. Yeah, because it was bumper to bumper, and they just kind of stood in the middle.
Yeah, if we would have, now that we know going forward, now we're giving our away our strategy or anything, but I think in having a lot of infiltrators and stuff would have been interesting, and then coming up with Stompas and then a speed wall after that to fill up that gap.
Yes,
that comes in from reserve because they're the fastest. Might have actually been smart to just keep it off the table and bring it in, and then everything moves forward quickly. Because we were just wanted to put everything on the table, and the day was like, I'm stuck over here, and then the guys were just shooting them, So there was that. Yeah, and then I would say just ask your TO, maybe suggest limiting the points or whatever it could be. Terrain was decent. It did actually kind of help here and there. The explosion war wasn't crazy for force because it made it so there was a bunch of gaps everywhere and stuff was dying constantly, but you still got to use all your big guys that whole turn, so it was in the field bad when you brought your gigantic guys.
Exactly, that was a good rule.
It was a crazy good rule. And then they also had obviously free regenning battle line, so the battle line would constantly just regen off the table. You just constantly keep bringing guys in from reserve if you had infantry. So all those Brock's 20 boys just kept coming back on. It was kind of hilarious.
Right. And then another thing you were asking me earlier,
and what Wicked Joe said here too.
Oh, what do you say? It was a big help with everyone going simultaneously with several players from each team verifying roles. Oh, yeah, that's true. We used 2-person integrity when doing rolls because there's just so much going on at once, and it just kind of also sped things up. But another thing I'd like to see maybe next year is some sort of interactive secondary, not revolved necessarily around shooting, because that's one of the things that we were at a disadvantage of is they just set this massive gun line across the table and just kind of barely moved up and just shot everything we had. But if there was something where it
wasn't until turn 4 when all that gun line blew up from the chain reaction that their demons had to come in and try to fight us.
Right, but something maybe like pushing a bomb, forcing it to the other side based off like model count or something, just to kind of get some interaction and get some. Also utilize like the smaller infantry units instead of them just kind of standing there and waiting to get
maybe have
up.
A section of the table that only infantry can pass through.
There you go.
And or Lords of War, like pretend there's tank tracks and barbed wire or tank treads or trench. Well, they go over trenches, but some kind of something that they can't just get over, and we pretend that it's only entrenched for infantry. That whole section of the table, like that square side where the side somewhere over here where all this empty spot where that dice tray is. That would have been good if they would have made that instead, like infantry only, trying to push that objective David's talking about.
There was
that would have been super slick, right?
Who did that battle report where they, or maybe it's Tabletop Titans?
40K in 40 minutes, most likely, something like that.
Or they did like
2 separate battlefields.
2 separate battlefields.
Yep, yeah, it was 40 minutes.
Yeah, something like that would be cool.
That would have been smart, actually. Now that we think about it, right? This section where that dice tray is, if that would have been like infantry only, pushing a bomb or a serval skull, pushing something based off OC with nothing vehicle related keyword or monster keyword or mount keyword being able to be in there, just made it all infantry right there, that would have made something kind of interesting. Then you could have had like a unit of custos trying to push the objective with a bunch of Imperial Guard around them and Space Marines, and then a bunch of orcs just charging into it and all trying to get closer to the center just enough to push the OC the other way, even if we don't kill them, just to get enough.
Right.
So that would have been really smart. Maybe I can suggest that to Jeff. So shout out to Jeff. So overall, it was really fun. We're doing it next year. If you guys are in the Midwest, hit us up. You know, we'd like to make it a cool thing. Pretty much near Adepticon. It's down the street from where Adepticon's held. Just to give it off the top of your head. So
yeah, one of the guys, the guy with the red and black orcs, he came all the way from Detroit.
Yeah.
So that was really cool with him.
So and this one's gonna be the full shop this time. So last time it was only the half, but that would be sick for next year.
Yeah, that's only half of the room.
Yep.
The space we had there.
Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty sick. And I would totally recommend. So next time you do it, if you ever do these things again, I would just say talk to the ODOs, make suggestions. Maybe you heard here stuff for yourselves based off who you know is going. Totally go. That way you can motivate yourself to paint. It was really fun. Everybody was cracking up for the most part when things were blowing up. Yeah. Nobody really killed. And then at the end, even though the enemy team was really trying to win, the fact that we won and we gave a great big whoa at the end and stared them down, it was great because we knew that we were working as a team cohesively and trying to win just by having a good time. And you know, Orks is never beaten, and it held up in the end. You know, Gork and Mork were with us that day, so Orks did prevail on the wall before Christmas.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah, some chats here before we get off. The wire deployment, yeah, having the speed. I think something like getting truncheon would have been awesome. Sounds like this wall needed more grots. Yeah. You know, that being mentioned, Wicked Joe, you know, was there, so he was having a good time talking about how we should use possibly use a battle report with the Legends model, and we could use that other guy. I'm having a brain fart.
The Grot Miskits or
the Grot Miskits, the Red Gobbo. So we're gonna be, and then GW is gonna release the new character.
Oh yeah.
So we, you know, he's gonna be coming out as well with the. I'm having a shot camera. I'm having a brain fart. I'm sorry. He's a bad one. Oof-tech. Yeah, Oof-tech. Yeah. So he's gonna be coming out, and then since they're legends, we can put them in a bat rep. That way, no one feels bad about using them. So it's pretty sick. So I appreciate it. Everybody should definitely do something like this. Just it gave me a reason to bring my 3 kill tanks off the shelf, my Gorkanaut, my Morkanaut, and my Stampa. It made me so happy that when I met up with Wicked Joe again earlier today, we played a game, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna freaking use a Stampa, Morkanaut, and a Gorkanaut against Wicked Joe today. It's gonna be fun because I was in such a mood. So you know, sometimes something like that, a fun game that has no edge on it, everybody's having a good time, knock the dust off some of your models. You know, everybody could be happy, and that's really about 40K is really about. I mean, look at this. Hilarious. 5 Stampas lined up, multiple Stampas lined up going here, you know, getting a whole turn. Like, come on, dude, nobody gets to use it. You know, that guy had triple Stampas. When does he get to use triple Stampas? That's why he came from Michigan.
Yeah.
He's like, I can use all 3 of these Stampas and all the boys get out. Yeah. So that was pretty sick.
You know, you've dreamed of doing that. Just using all your models in one game.
I mean, I had always wanted to use my Stampa, Morkanaut, Gorkanaut at the same time and triple kill tanks. Like, I was almost honored when that Super Titan targeted me at the end. I was like, what? He's like, I'm targeting you. Who's the owner of those kill tanks? I'm like, Lil May, you targeted my kill tanks? You know, because look where he's at. He's all over there. My kill tank, shout out to Brandon. Big Mac Brandon sent those to me, you know, to shout out to Big Mac Brandon. He donated them to the channel.
That was awesome.
These 3 Big Macs that are red and blue right there, he got targeted from those nights and got murked. You know, so it was got murked. So yeah, it was a great time. All right, everybody. Well, going forward, you know, we're going to do the raffle. Dave, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, we got one more week for the raffle, and we're going to announce the winner on next Friday during the stream. All you got to do to enter is be a member on YouTube or Patreon. You know, it helps towards the channel, helps towards the equipment. We have a lot of future plans to do for this channel too. So anything you can do helps out a lot. And this is our way of showing our appreciation for you guys supporting.
No matter where you at, you're getting it.
Yeah.
Aussies, I'm looking at you because you guys are worried. So you know what I mean? So we're going to be giving with the first raffles and we're going away to the Christmas box set.
Yeah.
And then the second one is going to go to Beast Boss on Squigosaur.
Yeah.
Yep. So
and then the third is
there's no. Yeah, no. So then, yeah. So it was overall, it'll be good. yeah, we look forward to doing that. We'll do the raffle. We'll do that raffle, and then we're gonna do a community stream so we can hang out one more time on Friday, and then on following upcoming year, we're gonna be doing like more tactic videos, and we'll talk about each individual unit. I'm gonna take the time, hopefully this little Christmas break / New Year's, to learn TTS so that I can present TTS ideas and conversations and how this actually works going forward. So that should be much more helpful, much more content, make more fun. And then I can game with you guys and get involved in that way with the community. We can all start getting stuck in, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that it?
I think so.
Well,
You got to remind them.
Of course, but there's always one thing to keep in mind. Don't cross the wall, because we knock your teeth out. Whoa!